What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the channel. It is freaking Friday, my boys, so you know what that means. It is time for a good, bad, and ugly, and today it is on the 6th generation Chevrolet Camaro. Just Chevrolet Camaro. We'll go over the trim levels later. If you want to see your car in the next good, bad, and ugly, absolutely leave it in the comments below. That's how I get these suggestions for the next cars. So if you want to see it, the only way I'm ever going to do it is if you leave it in the comments. So you have to comment the car you want. Also, if you want to support the channel, head on over to www.smoothstance.com/shop. We got shirts, we got shorts, and we got hats, and I personally think they look amazing. So if you want to support Mark Roden and you want to buy some merch in the process and wear your Smooth Stance around loud and proud, that's where you gotta go. Bye-bye. Anyway, guys, let's get right into the video. The good, bad, and ugly on the 6th gen Chevy Camaro. Alrighty, friend. So, the 6th generation Camaro, I hate that word, by the way, 6th. So annoying. It was built from the years 2015 to 2024. Yes, it is sadly ending its production next year, but hopefully that means that we're going to get another generation Camaro pretty soon. Fingers crossed. But through that time, it went through one facelift that actually did make it look a little bit better, in my opinion. A bit more like modern, I guess. Now, the trim levels for this car are a little bit confusing, but here's how they work. They start with the LT and the LS trim, which are pretty much exactly the same, and they come with a 2-liter turbocharged inline-4, making a pretty good 275 horsepower. However, the thing that separates these two is that the LT trim also got the option of a 3.6-liter V6 that made 335 horsepower. So the LT is the way to go if you're going on a budget, but the LS trim is the way to go if you just want that inline 4. Next would be the SS and the ZL1, which got the 6.2-liter V8, that's called the LT1, making a huge 455 horsepower, but the ZL1 is definitely the better option here due to the fact that it got just a bunch of other little tinier upgrades that really do end up making a big difference in the end. Like, you got wider tires, you have more carbon fiber to make it lighter, and you got wider fender arches, better airflow through the car, just better aerodynamics in general, better seats, better suspension. So the ZL1 is definitely the better one, even though they do make the same horsepower. And finally is the wonderful ZL1 1LE, which came with a 6.2-liter supercharged V8 that pumped out 600 horsepower and still to this day is within the top 20 fastest production cars to ever lap the Nürburgring. Beat that, Ford. In case you're wondering where the RS trim went, they pretty much replaced it with the LS trim, but you can still buy an RS Camaro if you live in China for some reason. They make them in China now. And now the car was only available as a rear-wheel drive, and it was offered with either a manual or an 8-speed auto or a 10-speed auto, depending on what year and trim level you get. I highly recommend you stay away from the 8-speed auto, but we'll get into that later. And for the body styles, it was available as obviously a coupe, because it's always available as a coupe, or a convertible, because it's always available as a convertible. Please don't get the convertible, though. It just does not look right on a Camaro. Like, just don't do it. Now we are into the modifying scene for these cars and what people usually do when pimping them out and tuning them. And the obvious one is a street build. They are a Camaro after all. They have always been built to be fast on the drag strip, but now that the drag strips are kind of dying off, sadly, many people mainly build these cars for the streets and the streets only, which makes sense. The LT1 that this car came with is an amazing engine to build, and you can get power out of it incredibly easy for pretty damn cheap as well. You can throw some freaking beadlocks on the back and some skinnies in the front, FBO and tune this car, and you have a freaking rocket ship that can't be touched from a dig. For just about anything else, however, it's not really that used. Rally racers aren't about to drop like $50,000 to take a heavy rear-wheel drive V8 car off-road. That just doesn't make any sense. Drifters are way too broke, and so they're not going to be spending that kind of money on this car. And show car guys like whatever trendy and popular cars are out there right now, and this car just isn't really that right now. They like Miatas and LS400s. The only other form of motorsport that these cars do compete in is like track racing, because they're incredibly good at it, which is super cool to see, like American car brands branching out from just being straight line speed monsters and actually being pretty good at like corners too now. And so hey, I have nothing to complain about that, but some people do. Once again, we're going to get into that later though. Now it is time for the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the way this works, in case you're new here, is first I go over the good, which are things that are just amazing, handy dandy, great things about the car. Then I go over the bad, which are things that are kind of up to you. It's a take it or leave it kind of deal. It might affect you, it might not. Then we go over the ugly, which are things that are just, you're going to have to address. Usually most cars don't have a lot of uglies, so there's big problems. They're major, major problems. But right off the bat, we're going to start with the good, and it is the sound. It is a freaking roaring V8, and I don't think there's any way that somebody out there cannot like the sound of this car, but maybe you don't, so here's a clip. Next is the modifiability, tunability, whatever you want to call it. Holy moly, this car can achieve freaking greatness with some pretty simple mods to it too. You gotta love that about Chevy's engineering. They constantly make these cars that are just so easy to make huge power out of. Next is the reliability. Muscle cars usually aren't the most reliable out there, but once again, the Camaro is pretty damn good at it. They get a very good reliability rating, as much as that matters to you. Next is the looks. This is personally one of my favorite generations of Camaro ever, to be honest, and I think it's pretty hard to not like these looks, man. Like, just take a look at it. Even if you're a Mustang guy, even if you're a Challenger guy, just look at the car and be honest with yourself. It looks pretty cool. Next is it has a surprising amount of space in it. Like, it definitely is not a family car by any means necessary, but if you do need to haul the homies around, it's going to get the job done, and I like that about it. Next is the power. If you get an SS or a ZL1, you get 455 horsepower out of the gate, which is just amazing. I mean, come on, bro. There's not a lot of other cars out there that offer that amount of horsepower for the price that this car is. Next is it is rear-wheel drive. This could be a bad if you live in a winter area, but in my opinion, every muscle car should be rear-wheel drive. So if you plan on buying a muscle car, you're probably going to have to live with that fact. Next is the interior quality is actually pretty damn decent. It's not great by any means necessary, do not get me wrong, but it's definitely not bad for an American muscle car. You would expect an American muscle car to have like freaking cigarettes and Jack Daniels whiskey bottles in it, but it doesn't, and it's pretty nice. And finally, for the good is the sound system. Apparently this thing plays music like you are at the freaking concert itself, which is because of the Bose sound system that comes in it, and that's pretty good. I actually have one more that I didn't write on my script here, but I just remembered it while thinking about this. It's the fact that it's still offered with a manual. I mean, freaking, I'm a car guy, and us car guys love to see people trying to save the old manuals and bring them back. And so every time that I see a new sports car with a manual transmission, I just have to show my respect. So props to you, Chevy, for doing that. Thank you. But now it's time for the bad, which are things that are kind of up to you if it affects you or not. And right off the bat is the V6 or inline 4 models are just honestly not worth your money at all. You can buy a freaking 370Z, which weighs a whole lot less, and it makes pretty much exactly the same power. I don't really understand why people would buy the V6 or inline 4s of this gen. Next is the cup holders kind of stink. Alright, you can hold things in them for sure, but not a whole lot. It is a sports car though, so that does make sense, but still, you're not going to be putting a lot of drinks in there. Next is the price. Normally, it wouldn't be too bad. You can buy an SS for $43,000, which is not horrible, but due to the fact that the Corvette exists, I can't do it, man. I don't understand. The C7 Corvette, you can buy that for around the same price as this car, and it is just way better in my opinion. Next is it is rear-wheel drive. Yes, I know I mentioned this in the good, but I will put it here too, just in case you really cannot afford to drive a rear-wheel drive car. Next is it's a gas guzzler. It gets an average 20 miles per gallon, which is absolutely deadly in today's market. And market and age. I was about to say market and age. That doesn't work though. But gas is almost at freaking $6 a gallon, and that's way too much. Next is the aftermarket support for cosmetics is very small. You don't have to do much to make them look good, but if you wanted to change everything on it like it's a freaking Miata, you're out of luck. It doesn't have a lot of mods on it for wide body kits or bumpers or skirts or whatever. Next is the electric parking brake system seems to be nothing but a nuisance. That's just something that I've read online. I don't know much about it. Next is the keyless entry system the car has. I will 100% never understand how people care so much about not having to unlock their car manually, because all it does is seem to cause nothing but problems, and it's so easy to just press a button on your key fob and unlock a car, but whatever, that's whatever. Finally, for the bad though, is the whole, it's more of a sports car than a muscle car, bro. In case you don't know, muscle car fans are a little bit upset with this generation Camaro because it focuses more on being good at handling and, cornering and be comfortable and being planted than just going fast in a straight line, which to them means that it's not a muscle car, but to me, that's just stupid. I understand if you are a diehard muscle car fan, how you'd want to just go fast in a straight line, but dude, times are changing, and why would you not want to go cool fast around corners too? It's not like it's slow in a straight line, it's still fast in a straight line, but now it does corners good too. That's just better. But now we are into the ugly, which are just major problems with the car that you're going to have to address. And there are only two, so that's a good thing for this car. Congrats. The first one is you sadly can't even fix it. You know what I mean? This is a problem that you're not going to be able to fix, and it is the terrible visibility. This car has so many blind spots and so many small little windows that it makes driving it feel like it's a freaking Lamborghini, which, considering that people use these for daily drivers a lot, that's obviously a pretty big issue. And like I said, you can't fix that. That's a problem that they made. Unless you like cut and weld some things and made the car look completely different, that's going to be something that you're going to have to deal with. And finally, for the ugly, is the 8-speed automatic trans is just a nightmare. It should be pretty easy to avoid it, so if you can, do. Go with the 10-speed or go with the manual transmission. It's just not worth it. Plus, it's way worse in performance than the 10-speed anyways, and it's a lot less fun than the manual anyways, so there's honestly no reason to grab one. So, do I think that you should get a 6th generation Chevy Camaro? Well, if you can afford one, kind of. I personally couldn't see myself buying one, and that's not just because I'm not a huge muscle car fan. It just seems like the Corvette is better than it in every way possible. And before, people would buy the Camaro over the Corvette because it was such a huge price difference, but nowadays, that price difference isn't even really there. Plus, due to the terrible blind spots, it doesn't even make sense when talking about like that part of it anymore either, that it's a better daily driver, because it really isn't. I mean, yeah, it has a little bit more space, but it's not any safer. But I will say, if you do like the looks of the Camaro a whole lot better, then it definitely isn't a bad choice either. It's still a good car. It's just, in my personal opinion, if I was looking at buying a high-powered muscle car from Chevy, I'm gonna go with a Corvette. They are exactly the same price, and the Corvette's just better. No matter what, though, I don't recommend buying one new. Okay, if you are going to buy one, absolutely look for a used one, because the price is insane on these cars, and if you wait a couple of years, most likely the 7th generation Camaro is going to be coming out, and so I'd recommend just doing that. If you want to buy one, though, and you really like it, definitely buy a new one, because most of these cars haven't been driven that much anyway. You can probably find one for under 30,000 miles with probably under $30,000, which is going to save you a lot of money. But that is the end of today's Good, Bad, and Ugly on the 6th generation Chevy Camaro. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. If you own a Camaro and I made a mistake, or if you know something about the Camaro that I didn't say, or that I made a mistake on, let me know in the comment section down below. Also, of course, let me know what car you'd like to see next week, because I always use your guys' suggestions to do the next Good, Bad, and Uglies. And once again, I've said it like a lot recently, but I'm going to say it again. Thank you guys so much for all the support. It means the most to me. I really appreciate it. With all that goo goo gaga stuff out the way, das vidanya. Have a nice day.